Voices to hear.
Hello, welcome to Voice to Hear. I am Mustafa.
And I'm Emre. Today we are here to talk with Lukáš about a topic that affects all of us, the influence of physical activity on our health and well-being.
We will be discussing how exercise impacts not just our bodies, but also our minds.
But before we get started, Lukáš, could you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hello everyone, my name is Lukáš. I'm a volunteer here from Slovakia, and I have studied strength and conditioning training at university for a master's degree, and in addition to that I'm also a certified fitness coach. So exercise and physical mental health is something that I'm very passionate about and interested in.
Our first question is, how does physical activity affect long-term health?
Thank you for the question. For the beginning, I think it's important to define the terms. So define what is physical activity and what is health. Here I will use the official definition of health by World Health Organization, which is stating that health is a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being. So it means that it is not the absence of disease, but it is a range, it is a state of well-being. So here we can maybe see that just talking about if someone or something is healthy, it's not black and white, it's a range really. And then there are many things that influence our health, from the genetics and from the environment, from the air we breathe, and of course then from the physical activity, the exercise we are doing, also the nutrition, the foods we eat. Here I would mention the model of health, which is common to use, and it's a biopsychosocial model of health, which means that there are three domains to our health which are interconnected, and all of them are influencing how healthy we are. So beginning with the first part, it's bio, meaning biological. So there would be things like genetics, exercise, nutrition, psychological aspect or psychological domain. There could be our mental health, mental well-being, stress management, for example. And with the social, as humans, we are social creatures, not living alone, living in a society, in groups, in families. So there's a lot of science actually showing that the quality of relationships we have, they really influence our health, and also the risk of developing disease. For example, loneliness is also a very important risk factor for developing disease. So that's just for the introduction, to think about health more as an interplay of many different things. And some of them we can influence, some of them we cannot. For example, genetics. There is not a lot we can do to change our genetics. And then the question was, how does physical activity affect health? Yes. So overall, I would begin with that there are a lot of benefits to regular physical activity for health outcomes. Meaning that the problem today, in general, is that there is an increase of cardiovascular disease, cardiometabolic disease, some musculoskeletal disorders, also like this. Somewhere in some parts of the world, there is an increase in cases of certain types of cancer, which they can be influenced by not sufficient physical activity. So then the problem is also that there is not a small part of population in general that doesn't have sufficient physical activity. Doesn't necessarily mean they live a sedentary lifestyle, and if they move, if they do some sports, it's just not enough. in terms of meeting the official guidelines, the official recommendations. So here, to answer the question, we need to really look at how much physical activity we are doing, how much we have in our lives, what is the intensity of the physical activity, what is the type of physical activity, and if we are doing some, let's say, strength exercises in the gym, it's important to do it with the proper technique in order to avoid injury. So there are a lot of questions that come into what you asked. How does physical activity affect health outcomes or long-term health outcomes? It's beneficial, and then it really does depend on the intensity, frequency, the duration of physical activity, and the type.
What is the role of the mind-body connection in stress relief through exercise?
So for me, in this question that you asked, mind-body connection, and how it can play a role in stress management through exercise, through physical activity. For me, what it means personally is, for example, when I'm doing some type of physical activity, can be even walking. Walking is a very good physical activity, very underestimated as well. So can be walking, running, cycling, can be some type of sport. Mind-body connection is important to just really be aware of what I'm doing. So maybe this principle is connected to some meditation techniques or mindfulness approach. Mind-body connection, here for me, it means just to be really aware of how my body is feeling, how my body is moving. For example, if I go to the gym for a workout, for a training, then I try not to think about tomorrow or the next week, and really to focus on the exercise I'm doing, on the technique I'm using, on how I'm breathing, for example. So just to be really aware of my body, of the movements, that is mind-body connection for me, and how it can help with stress relief. Here, the mechanism would be dual or double, I would say. So first of all, just focusing on the present moment, for example, on our breath, is beneficial for stress management, to bring our awareness from overthinking, let's say, or from certain thoughts that trigger stress response in our bodies. So just a simple breathing exercise, maybe box breathing, which was mentioned in the previous podcast episode, can be very beneficial. And the second mechanism here is that many types or aerobic exercise in general, which for some people can be walking, then it's running, swimming, cycling, hiking in the mountains, for example. So these are different types of aerobic exercise. After a certain duration of doing this type of exercise, aerobic one, we see that there is a release of endorphins in the body, which we know as maybe these good or happy chemicals that brings this good feeling after a run or after an hour of cycling, after exercise. Yes.
Okay.
So that would be the second mechanism for me when it comes to mind-body connection.
Here's the third question. What are the key health benefits associated with consistent physical activity?
Thank you. This is a very important question. In general, I would go back to the beginning, what I said, the problem with insufficient physical activity, not meeting the guidelines, and I will come back to them in a moment. So there is an increased risk of hypertension, of developing type 2 diabetes or other cardiovascular disease with not having, let's say, enough physical activity and not proper nutrition. And the nutrition and physical activity, they go hand in hand in playing an important role in our health. There are, I would say, three very important areas. There are all of them, but I would point out three here. when it comes to benefits of physical activity for our health. So first area would be metabolism, meaning with consistent and sufficient physical activity, we can improve, or we are improving our the insulin sensitivity of our bodies. And this is counteracting for hyperinsulinemia, which is a big risk factor in developing metabolic disease, meaning elevated levels of insulin in our blood. Then also, when it comes to metabolism, we see a positive change on blood lipids profile with consistent and sufficient physical activity. And also, then we decrease risk of developing these cardiovascular diseases, for example, stroke, hypertension.
Mm-hmm.
Then another important area, I would say, is the structure of our body, meaning bones, ligaments, and joints. So here with, for example, with strength training, so with resistance training, not as much with aerobic physical activity, although that also plays a role, but more with strength training, we see an improved bone density, therefore also reduced risk of bone fractures, which is very important in countering the osteoporosis, which is basically a decrease in bone density, and it comes with age. So any type of regular resistance training is very important throughout our lives, and also very important for people of old age to maintain the bone density and strength. Although it is decreasing over time, this we cannot prevent. We can, let's say, slow it down. And the third part, for me, connected also to metabolism, would be heart health, which is that with sufficient and regular physical activity, one of the effects we can measure is reduction in resting heart rate, therefore improved aerobic capacity, for example, with running, with cycling or swimming. And also it lowers blood pressure. And also we see a reduction in the production of stress hormones at rest in our bodies. So going back to the previous question, this can also help with stress management, but I would say more long-term, not for acute periods of stress.
Now, the fourth question. How can exercise contribute to better mental health and well-being?
So now when the question is the benefits of physical activity for mental health and well-being, first of all, I would say that it's mainly about just feeling good, let's say. So the listeners who did some running or some hiking in the past, maybe they can try to remember how did they feel after an hour, after 2 hours, maybe a few more hours of walking. How did they feel? Spending time in nature, for example. So this can all be connected to physical activity or any type of sports. Then also important part in well-being, and going back to the biopsychosocial model of health, the social part mainly, it's the specificity or the difference in team sports or any type of physical activity, let's say running in group. So for mental health, for well-being, just feeling better in general, my advice would be, if you are not feeling motivated to start running or to go to the gym, don't go alone. Call your friends, join a local group for bike, for run, for walking, for hiking. Find community and group of people around you in your town, in your city, that they are going regularly to do any type of physical activity, and just join them and try it once, yes, and then just see and notice how you are feeling. So here I would answer this. And also I want to say that I see a lot of science that's being misinterpreted in terms of benefits of physical activity for mental health. So personally, I would say that of course it's beneficial. Of course, there are many benefits, but to treat sport as a cure or as a treatment can also be for some type of people a risky behavior, I would say. So here I would underline, if someone listening has any mental health problems which are, let's say, bigger than just stressing about work or exams, first try to consult someone. For example, meaning if someone is suffering with depression or anxiety, which is quite common, for sure, starting to exercise, building a habit, can help you a lot. And I'm talking from my experience as well. Can help you a lot to feel better, to manage stress, to just get the energy out of your system, let's say, out of your body. But also, it's not a cure for all. So it's beneficial for sure, but not a cure. Because as I mentioned at the beginning, there are a lot of things that influence our health. So here I would also just point that, for example, healthy nutrition is also important in how healthy we are.
Thank you.
So here is our last question. How can we include exercise into a busy and stressful day?
Thank you for that question, because also like busyness and stress, it's something quite common, I would say, nowadays. And so here I would go back to the guidelines I have mentioned, but I was not being specific. So as a general rule, to begin with, I would point the listeners to global guidelines for physical activity, which state that for adults, meaning between 18 and 64, try to do, aim to build a habit of exercising at least 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity aerobic activity, or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity. And I will explain. So, as I already mentioned, aerobic activity would be any type of walking, running, cycling, hiking, swimming, let's say. For example, tennis could be, football as well, for example. So here, aim to do at least 150 minutes in a week, somehow spread it during the week, of moderate intensity. And moderate intensity means that basically you are able to speak still during your run, so it's not very fast, it's not sprinting. And maybe you are not able to sing, let's say. So it is really connected to your heart rate and to your breathing as well. So when we increase our heart rate, it becomes a bit more difficult to maintain the pace of our breath. And after a certain time, it becomes, or after a certain intensity, becomes impossible to talk. For example, in sprinting. And a sprinting, or not being able to talk fluently, let's say, that is an example of vigorous intensity. So here we aim for 75 minutes spread throughout the week. And the guidelines also mention that for additional health benefits, double the amounts, meaning 300 minutes spread throughout the week of moderate aerobic activity, or 150 minutes of vigorous intensity of aerobic activity. So personally, I would still take the guidelines that are doubled. So really aim for 300 minutes, but for someone who is starting the habit, can be still very, very beneficial of 150 minutes. The point of adding the double amounts for additional benefits is maybe to counter the fact, which I already mentioned at the beginning, that a lot of people that are doing some type of sport, some type of physical activity, they are not doing enough in terms of intensity or frequency or duration.
Yes.
Then, continuing with the guidelines, strength training, resistance training for major muscle groups at least 2 times a week. At least 2 times a week. Doesn't mean that we need to go to the gym for 1 hour or for 2 hours. We can find a good program, or it's, I think, best at the beginning to cooperate with a personal trainer, with a fitness coach, because it's important to do exercise with a good technique to avoid injury. So, strength training, resistance training, at least 2 times a week. And then I would also add some type of exercise for flexibility and for balance, which is very important.
Yes.
A good type of physical activity, which is aerobic. There is a part of strength in that, and a part of balance and the coordination. Very important aspect is dance. Also, to these guidelines, to these recommendations, I would add really focus on the activity that you enjoy to do. And as I mentioned, the importance of maybe doing an exercise in a community or in a group of friends. I think it can help with motivation, really. If I don't feel motivated to start running or to go to the gym, I would say it can be less difficult to start with a friend or with a group of friends, because we're having fun, but also exercising exercise is included in that. So here it's good not to do it alone, because it can help with motivation.
Yes.
So find any type of physical activity that you enjoy, because for example, with the aerobic activity, the importance is the work of heart, and heart is a muscle, but and increasing our heart rate. But our heart doesn't know if we are walking or hiking or swimming. It doesn't know. So, for example, if I don't enjoy running, I can go for the bike. Just one example, not to be discouraged. If I try something and I don't like it, or I don't feel really comfortable, let's say, there are many other options I can try. And one last recommendation would be to reduce the sedentary time throughout the day, meaning even if I have to, because of my job, because of my work, I have to sit in the office, try to do a few pauses, a few breaks. Yes, thank you. A few breaks in between. So let's say, if it's possible for you, then at least walk around every hour for 5 minutes. Just to change the position and to walk around, to move, so you are not
your legs.
Exactly. So can help a bit, for example, with circulation, blood circulation, but not just to be sitting for 4 or 5 hours straight in a row without taking a break. So that would be my recommendation. And how to include that in a day practically: start with the amount that you are confident with the duration of physical activity that you are confident that you can maintain. For example, I will not, if I'm complete beginner to running and I want to try that, I want to do that, I will not start with 1 hour of running.
Start like 15 minutes.
So I would start with 15 minutes, or I would start with 20 minutes and asking a friend to go together.
Yes.
So start with that, and keeping in mind, I would say, the consistency, or to do it regularly. So for sure, try to move every day if you can, meaning just walking back home from work is very beneficial, just like 15-30 minutes. And then to build a habit of regular physical activity, think about your week. I would say, how are you feeling, for example, on Monday or on Friday or during the weekend? How you feel? How does your life look like? Meaning, when are you meeting your friends, or how does it work with your family or kids if you have? And really think about your week and try to put the physical activity, the exercise in the calendar. And then after, when you look at that, just ask yourself how confident you feel that you can maintain this, that you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And if there is some doubts, let's say, you can always change it. So really it doesn't mean that you need to go to the gym every day or go running every day. Here I would really stick to the guidelines I mentioned. So for strength training, it would be at least 2 times a week. So start with 2 times a week, and after a few weeks or a few months even, you can go to 3 times a week or even more.
Yes.
And strength training, for example, doesn't have to be in a gym, because I know that money is also a factor really that does influence our health, just the financial situation, financial context. There are a lot of body weight exercises that you can do for free outside or in your room. So you don't have to go to the gym to have a good workout and good exercise. So there are a lot of body weight exercises that you don't need weights for this. You don't need to go to the gym to have a good workout, and it's for free. And here I would also again underline, for the beginning, it's best to exercise with someone who is more experienced, or with a trainer who knows to make sure that you have a proper technique of the exercise in order to avoid injury. Yeah, that would be my recommendations. And when we go back to this 150 minutes, to this 75 minutes, you can spread it out throughout the week. So you do this type of exercise 3 to 5 times a week.
Yes.
So if it's 3 times, then it's 50 minutes. If it's 5 times, then it's 30 minutes, which is half an hour, let's say, 5 times a week. And somewhere into that, you put a strength training, somewhere into that, just maybe some yoga for flexibility or for balance. And I think, just for beginning, this is very good outline how to start.
I agree. So thank you for your recommendations, and thank you for your answers.
Thank you, Lukáš.
Thank you everyone for listening. We hope you learned something new today on how to add more movement into your day.
So keep moving, stay healthy, and join us next time on Voices to Hear podcast.
Goodbye.
Voices to Hear.